just live. Yep.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the last in this series of Building Your Digital Influence webinars by Dallas McMillan of Influential. Tonight we're getting to the pointy end where we're looking at actually building an online platform, and I know that that's something that a lot of people have been looking at lately. I know I certainly have been, so I'm going to be tuning in very carefully tonight. What we're going to be looking at tonight with Dallas is what things we need to build our actual online platform and in what order we need to build them. We'll look at how to scale our personal interaction with our new clients, and we'll look at what sort of products to build and how to build those products. So take it away, Dallas. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Bronwyn, and welcome to everyone who's joined us tonight. So yeah, this is the sort of the fifth part of a series of 5. We've had a couple of bonus seminars along the way, and today we're talking about actually how we design, develop, and deliver our online presence. So it's the reason this is 5th rather than 1st is that it's really important to get the planning right, to figure out how we're going to interact with our customer, what our business model is, what we're going to communicate with them, what we actually want to share, and what sort of story we're telling. You know, we need to get clear on all that before we start going to build things, because it's much harder to change the story after we've already built all the moving parts. Much better to plan everything out, map it all out, and then build it once right the first time. And this is coming from bitter experience of designing things and then getting to the end and thinking, hang on, not quite right, and sort of going back to the start, and very labor intensive trying to go through that design process again. Sometimes though, that's the only way to learn. And what I find is that this process is very iterative. And as we go through this session tonight, I'll show you how to do those iterations, how to work a bit at a time, working from the beginning to the end and going over layer by layer, building up to the finished product, so that we do the things first that we need to do, but then we get something out there, and then we do the next part, and we're gradually refining and improving what we've got until we've got the fully finished product. But we don't wait till we've completely finished before we can start getting some results. So tonight, the webinar is continuing the building our online sales funnel, and the whole purpose of building our online presence is to create a brand. And I talked a lot about what brands are. It's something that is unique to us. Basically it's an online asset that we've got, and that's something that can become both sellable, but also it can multiply the value of what we're selling. By having a branded product versus an unbranded product, you can ask for higher prices, people are more willing to buy, you get repeat purchases, customer loyalty, you know, and a reputation online with individuals and with Google. There's lots of benefits to building a brand, and it's something that takes time, but has great rewards, and particularly when you've got the right business model to go with it. So the elements that make up a brand are that you are visible, so that you can actually get found and attract clients. You're credible, so you're trustworthy and believable and seen as an expert. And you're remarkable or different in some way, so that you can offer unique value rather than offering the same thing that everyone else offers. And that way, you kind of own your marketplace. Whereas if you're just trying to be the same as 100 other people online, unless you're the best, then you're just not going to get found. In the physical world, people will go to their local provider of any type, you know, the one who's closest to them, or the one whose children go to the same school as their children. But in the online world, they're just going to hit Google, find the top ranking person, and if you're just one of many offering the same product or service, then unless you're first, then you're going to miss out on the vast majority of business. So it's a real struggle in the online world. You need to be the best at something. And this is a way to sort of build your own race course and own your spot on the web, have your own niche and your own customers. Now, my clients are mostly professionals, and so they've got a practice or consulting practice, or they might have a bricks and mortar business, or they might be wanting to start an online version of their offline business. Perhaps they were working as a mortgage broker from home, and they recognise a particular market opportunity to offer an Australia-wide service by being the market leader in one area. They want to be first at one specific niche that will give them a really good return on their investment. So as I said, they want to attract clients, build an expert brand, and ultimately grow their business or career. And how do we do that? How do we attract clients and convert them into buyers? As I've outlined, it's really a 5-step process that people have to go through anytime they're looking to become your client for the first time. First, they need to become aware of you, to get to know you. Then they have to get you to like you. If they don't like you, they're not going to be interested in working with you. Then they have to trust you. And this is critical, because if they don't trust you, even if they do buy from you, you never really establish a rapport you need for a good working relationship. So in order to have a successful engagement and deliver the maximum value, you need to earn the trust. And if you don't get this right, then it's an uphill battle. Even though you can give the product, there's never a completely satisfactory outcome, because then there's sort of latent uneasiness there. So this is a really critical step. Then they need to try your products and services. And in the professional services, like if you're a doctor or a lawyer or a business coach, this will often take the form of an initial consultation or some sort of diagnostic process or an initial appraisal. So the try phase lets them confirm what they thought they knew, that they know, like, and trust you. And you'd rather that they try you and go, well, hang on, this isn't what I thought I was getting in for. I'd rather not proceed, than go ahead and become a full-fledged client and then, be unhappy. You'd rather filter them out at each stage when it's clear that they're not a good match. And then finally, you want them to go on and buy your full and remarkable product, your full price product or service. So this might be delivered one-to-one as a consulting thing. It might be a program. It might be a large product. But this is your full price product or service that's what you really want to sell them. And the theme for these 5 workshops has really been building your social sales funnel. This is an approach to marketing that's distinctly social. We want to be interacting with people. We want to use social proof. We are using, and I love this quote by a guy called Oren Klaff, the author of a book called Pitch Anything. He says, every business interaction is a social interaction. And until you understand it through those terms, you'll misunderstand it. It's a social interaction because at every step, people are kind of thinking, what does this mean to me as a social being? Humans are social animals. We're the social ape, you might say. So this whole thing is geared around sort of the relationship building. And, things like social media play into that, but there's a lot more to it. Now, what I've been taking you through in this course is basically this 5-step process of know, like, trust, try, buy. And today we're all about actually building our infrastructure to support that process. So the customer goes through a know, like, trust, try, buy. We need to build our online presence to support that process. And there's sort of 5 big steps, and each of these webinars has been covering one of them broadly, but now I'll sort of tie it all together and introduce the individual steps. So the first section was about our business model and having a beachhead, identifying one specific target market that is highly profitable, and then we can win, and we can defend and sort of own, and then we can grow from and either expand or scale. The second step was about relationships and how people interact with us through the sales process, and we introduced that social sales funnel, which I'll cover again just to recap shortly. The third step was building our authority as an expert. And this is really where we're winning their trust. So as I said, this is know, like, trust, try, buy. And this is what we're doing to support each of those steps. We need to build our authority and our credibility and believableness, trustworthiness, in order to earn the client's trust at this stage of the buying cycle. And we do this by building our authority, and we'll be going into that today. the next step, and we actually talked about this a couple of webinars ago, was having a narrative sales process, because people are now in a situation where they get to choose what media they consume. 20 years ago, if you wanted to watch TV one night, you had a choice of 5 channels, and you'd have to sit through the ads or enjoy ABC, and that was your only options. Today, we have at least 10,000 streaming programs at our fingertips if we know where to look, and pretty much an infinite variety of other entertainment through the web, and lots of other media. So I've got a huge choice of media. Now people want to be entertained, they want a relationship, they want to be moved, and the best way to do that is through storytelling. That's the tried and proven method that's been used for thousands of years and continues to be successful. People love to be entertained and taken on a narrative journey, and if you can develop a story about your brand, about your customers, and about the transformative experience that you offer, then you can deliver sales in a way that people love. Yeah, and they'll enjoy it even if they don't buy, but if they do buy, it's only going to add to the value of the experience. And then finally, we need to deliver the value. So you remember I said, for the customer, it's know, like, trust, try, and buy. From our perspective, we need to get to know them and to like them and then trust them. You know, we have to qualify the client, but then we tell them, we tell them our story, and then finally we'll sell them the product. And we don't want to get those things out of order. If we try to sell before we've earned trust, or if we try to tell the story before they even like us, it's going to fall over. And so let's just zoom in on each of these now. So the first section, our business section, was really about developing our target market, and the next step, the relationship, social sales cycle, authority. We talked about having an architecture to how we deliver information. So we really plan out what we're going to tell people at each stage of the journey. So in the first stage, when we're just getting to know them, we just want to tell them the one thing that we do and who we do it for. Next, we want to sort of tell them why they should choose us, why they should listen to us, why it's even relevant to them, and why they can't afford to not do it. Then, Bronwyn, I might get you to mute yourself because you're popping up every now and then. And then we get into our actual, our method, and there's quite a detailed architecture to that recording's available for your reference, but we won't cover that anymore tonight. And then we move into a narrative, and really the narrative journey is about creating these sort of challenges that the customer needs to overcome through the journey. And this is often done through case studies, or reflecting on what often happens, or what their current situation is, or what challenges they've faced. In some situations, the narrative might be about our own journey and how we've traveled, and how their journey will be similar. So, for a lot of people, they're kind of selling something where they're the ideal client as well, and they've figured out how to do it, and now they're selling it to other people. So, there's different ways we can tell a story. Often the story of how your brand came to be is really important and can be very engaging to people. So there's lots of ways this narrative can go, but the key thing about a narrative is that there are these challenges and big decisions to be faced, and that there's risk and danger, and you can only succeed by sort of rising above what you're facing at the time. So this is deliberately kind of big steps that you have to take, and in our narrative, we're the trusted guide who leads the way. This means that they really can't take this journey without us, and that helps win their trust. And then finally, we're going to deliver the product or service, and this very much is a reflection, like literally upside down reflection of the relationship process. So in relationship, we talked about the different steps people go through. Now we need to build our process to support that, and we build it from the start, like from the bottom up. The end is built last, but we actually kind of plan it first. We have to know where we're going, but we're going to build. You have to build your foundations before you put the roof on. So yeah, we're zooming in on delivery today. So I'll just recap this social sales process. So this was the second step, and this is really the steps your client goes through in the relationship. So as I've said many times already, first they need to get to know you, who we are, what we do, who we help, and what the ROI of working with us is. And at this stage, we just want them to become aware of us and for us to be noticed. Next, they need to like us. And this is all about why, why we do it, but really why it's relevant to them, why they should trust us, and how we're different to alternatives or what they're doing at the moment. The challenge here is really building alignment and being remembered and really building that rapport and relevance. And it's not just social liking as in, oh, I really like them. It needs to be much more than that. It needs to be a deeper alignment. And in the full program, I go right into the actual underlying values that drive people's priorities. So often we know our customers have problems, but they're only problems because of what their priorities are, which are driven by their values. And that's a really powerful way to build a stronger connection than just solving problems. In the trust phase, it's sort of why trust us, and we do that by sharing our expertise. And I'll talk more about how we actually share that. But at this stage, people are really trying to make sense of what their situation is, and this is where we connect our expert knowledge with the customer's understanding of their situation and help them reframe their interpretation of their situation into a framework where we can paint a path to the solution. Because at first they'll just think, oh, I've got this set of symptoms, I want them to go away. We want to explain what the cause is and show them a path to the solution. So they think, oh, well, obviously I need to do that. I'd better work with you. In the try phase, we want to show how our process actually works. So this is a chance for them to get a taste for what we do, and it also lets us qualify them as a buyer. So if they won't follow our process, they don't get to play in our sandpit. At each step, we want the client to know, like, and trust us and to try and buy, but also we want to check they're right for us. We don't want anyone going through who isn't playing by our rules, isn't going to be a good customer, isn't going to let us profit, isn't going to receive the value that we've got to offer and respect us and our expertise. And then finally, at the buy phase, we want to convert the sale and begin the onboarding process and actually deliver the value. The challenge here is delivering all the detail that we have, all the expertise we have, while maintaining the big picture and keeping the focus on the relationship rather than it becoming really transactional. And the result of this process done well is both revenue, that's the value we capture, but also we're bolstering the relationship and the client's receiving value as well on their side. In the authority step, where we talked about brand architecture, we sort of mapped out that at each stage of this process, we share different information, and that, as I said, that recording's available. So I also talked in the social sales process about in the know phase, that's basically a search. It's a phase where people are searching for us, or they're in need of something. So they've sort of got their eyes open, a bit like if you think about buying a blue jacket, then suddenly you see blue jackets everywhere. It's called your reticular activating system. It's part of your brain that looks for relevance in the environment. Things that matter to you will stand out. And so if someone has a problem, they're subconsciously looking for solutions. And very often then they'll also actively Google and consciously search. In the like phase, it's a social interaction. In the trust phase, it's about sharing insights and sharing expertise. And as I go into tonight, in this trust phase, we're creating information that will boost our credibility, but our customers and our advocates can share with other people and create referrals, which means that the people who they share it with will kind of skip these first few steps and go straight to this trust phase, which is very powerful. In the try phase, that's sort of our sales process, the end of the sales and marketing process. And then in the buy phase, it's about finding a solution. Now, at each of these levels, there's a particular thing that we need to support that process. So for people to know us, we need a platform to be found on. If we're sitting at home or in our business and no one's walking past and seeing our signs or finding us on the internet, then it doesn't matter how good our business is, no one knows. We need a way to stand up and be noticed, to stand out from the crowd. And the way to do that is with a platform. I'll go into detail of what that means later on, but effectively it's things like a website, like a shopfront, PR, being in the magazine or news, being in the yellow pages. They're all platforms that let you reach a broader audience and stand out from the other people who aren't on that platform. So that's our first step. In the like phase, it's basically a personal interaction. People are deciding, are you for me? Do I like you? Are you like the people that I do business with? Do my friends think you're a good doctor or a lawyer or accountant? Because most people are driven 80% by what other people think. Everyone feels like they're an individual and like they make up their own mind, but overwhelmingly they're driven by what their family, friends, and peers are doing. So there's a quote that if you what's normal in one area, if you go 50 miles, it's different in another area. It's from a horse trainer called Pat Pirelli, and he's got a lot of cowboy wisdom. But to me, that's super accurate. I used to move around quite a lot when I was growing up, and the thing that was totally normal at one school and absolutely desirable, you'd move to another school and it would be completely bizarre and strange. And so this concept of what's okay or normal or what you have to have is entirely subjective and basically just conditioned by your environment. But human nature says that we all think that what we like and what our friends like is the only way. So we sort of need to understand what our customers are looking for, what they gravitate toward, and make sure our product is geared toward what they're looking for. And then in the trust phase, the way to build trust is to actually publish. So this can take many forms. Obviously, there's many people in the audience who have written a book, which is an awesome way to publish. About 500 years ago, the printing press was invented, and it was an absolute breakthrough in how information could be communicated. For the next few hundred years, the colonial powers of Europe invaded the whole world, and they'd turn up somewhere and they had books with laws that said that they would own the land where they landed, and they'd draw a map of it and write out some documents. And very often they encountered local people, but because they didn't have anything written down, they assumed they had no law. So the power of the written word is incredibly strong in our culture. We take it for granted because we've all grown up with it. Now we're going through an absolute transformation in society where the online world forms the bulk of the media we're consuming. So it's changing very quickly. Most people in the audience grew up reading books and watching teachers draw on blackboards. Our children, like my children are 5 and 7, they will have a very different experience growing up. That will still be a part of it, but their attachment to the power of the book will probably be lower. But nonetheless, anything published where everyone can see it and you can sort of point to it and other people can check it, that all adds credibility. So the act of publishing is hugely powerful, whether it's a book or whether it's video or a blog or a slide presentation. So publish is how we sort of demonstrate our expertise. The fact that you go to the trouble to publish it means it's probably worth saying. And at the try phase, they start to encounter our products, and that might be information products like ebooks or things that are basically publications but packaged together for sale, or perhaps you can access them via a download, or maybe it's a free trial or an introductory consultation. And then finally, in our buy phase, we might deliver our services one-to-one, but ideally we want to be productizing, packaging, and programifying our services so that we can deliver consistent services more efficiently ideally in a way that can be scaled very efficiently, or can be done one-to-many, or is repeatable. So there are ways to scale our business and deliver an improved customer experience and a more consistent product, rather than sort of having to treat every new job like a brand new one. That occurs in every business, but the more we can focus our initial target market, so they all have one particular problem, the more we can deliver a specific tailored program or solution to them. And just shoot through that. Sorry, this is a duplicate. Okay, so now we have to think about how we're actually going to build this. And what I've found when I've been trying to do things online is it's really hard to know what to do first. In a way, you want to be, moving as quickly as you can to having a sellable product, but unless you've got the infrastructure supporting that, the value of the product is low. So if you just sort of rush out and have a super high price product that's really unique and super suitable for one specific audience, but you don't have the rest of it there, your platform and publications and things, you just don't have the reach, but also you don't have the credibility, and you can't demonstrate how great your product is or how it's different. So this process is really designed to maximize the value that you deliver at the top of the pyramid, effectively, at the top of this this upside down funnel. And I like the idea that it's an upside down funnel. If you think about a funnel, a funnel is kind of a filtration or extraction process. And that's a passive process. You kind of squash, in a sales funnel, you squash customers in the top and sort of milk out the profits from the bottom. This process is quite different. At each step, we're asking the customer to step up to the next level. And that takes effort from them, and it takes effort from us. And we need to build a strong, stable foundation that they can trust, that they can step on and go, yeah, look, this is for me. It's safe to be here. And this will support me to climb higher. If it feels shaky, they won't want to climb to the top, even if there's this great prize of the remarkable result that they get out the end. But if we sort of think of the funnel as being a filtration process, this is almost like a distillation process where we're refining and extracting the best of it. And part of what comes out the top here is brand value. So if we think of a sales funnel, if you put lots of customers in the top and you extract the value, you get revenue. But that revenue, the sale of any individual item, unless there's lots of brand value there, the profit margin isn't very high. By building a really great online presence, you can raise the value of your brand, you can charge more and deliver more value, which means that your profit margin's higher, and effectively together, your revenue and your brand value sort of multiply to give your profitability. So this first level platform is where people are getting to know us. And this is really our online hub, our website, and there will be some related sort of systems to this. Ideally, this is a website we control rather than a blog or or a Facebook page or something like that. This should be a website that we own the domain. We've got our own email account attached to that domain. It would normally be a hosted website that we're sort of paying for. We're renting the space, but we own the IP rather than it being on someone else's platform. And really importantly here, Google is our partner in this. You can barely operate on the web without playing nicely with Google. The things like Google Analytics, Google Webmaster Tools, and even things like Gmail accounts, and as we'll see later, Google Hangouts, which is what we're using tonight, are all invaluable tools that let you, basically operate efficiently on the web. So this is our foundation, and if you don't get this right at first, it can be a real headache. So quite often clients come to me and say, oh, can you just help me improve my website? I just need a couple of things done. And it's almost always harder improving an existing site than it is just starting from scratch. And particularly because we've got systems in place to sort of build the first half very quickly, and then we sort of manually build the rest. But getting it done right at the start is critical. If you stuff up the first few steps, trying to DIY it, or get a cheap developer, and you make mistakes at the beginning, it can be really difficult and expensive to fix later on. So, and this is our platform. So I really want to give you that idea that your website is actually your global publishing platform, your global PR platform. It lets you stand out and be found by anyone, anywhere in the world, at any time, as long as they've got Wi-Fi access, basically. And that's incredibly powerful. And people have probably seen me be vocal, saying that people need to really take control of their own online presence. It's very sexy to sort of outsource everything to a VA, but unless you actually can drive your website and drive your publishing and PR and marketing and sales platform, then you're really hampered. And I often share the story of, and I'm not even sure this is totally accurate, but it sounds completely convincing. I believe that when there were kings and pharaohs in times of old, say, kings about 500 or 1,000 years ago, or pharaohs, 2 to 5,000 years ago, that they were the figureheads of the nation. They were the leaders of the whole nation, but they couldn't read or write very often. And I've read this, but I haven't looked for citations and haven't found them. But so take it on face value that some of the most powerful leaders of all time could not read or write, and they relied on their scribes to write everything down. So when it came to sending commands to far-flung kingdoms, or recording what happened on an auspicious day, or writing what the king did next, or who killed him, that was always written by people who weren't actually the leaders. And so the idea of thinking, oh, I'll just get a VA or my web designer to do all that for me, is actually giving away the keys to the kingdom. That's the way you're going to communicate with the world. If you are so technically illiterate that you can't put out a blog post, or change the first heading on your website that says who you are and what you do, then you really aren't empowered to make the impact online that you need to, or you'll just pay an awful lot to do anything at all. So for most of us, we're at a stage in our business where things are growing, we're getting good income, we're short on time, and it's very tempting to think, I'll just outsource that. But with the process I'll outline here, there is a considerable content creation process. You need to be creating thousands of words, and most of us aren't good at delegating content creation, and we're not sort of well enough off that we can pay a ghostwriter for it. And even if we could, it's unlikely they could say it better than we can. But also, by saying it, we learn what we want to say. We understand better by communicating it. So you actually miss out on a crucial part of the learning process by skipping the doing part. So I really encourage people to get in. You don't have to be a tech genius, but you need to be able to sign into your website and blog, or upload a YouTube video, or share things on social media, and do so comfortably, and make the odd mistake, but sort of be willing to learn. So the next phase is personal, and again, this is why it needs to be you doing it. A lot of people, who have limited exposure to social media, want to know, how can I hook up my website to sort of pump out posts to 10 different social media channels, and so that I don't have to do it. And effectively, they're wanting to go to these social environments, which are kind of like cocktail parties or barbecues, and pump out their promotional material without interacting. And I find it's the people who've done the least actual consumer use of social media, and have the lowest level of technological literacy, who are most keen to do this, because they don't understand how social networks work. And that approach, while it can be effective if it's done well, it's kind of like turning up at a networking event and going around to tables and interrupting people, introducing yourself, and dumping your business card on the table or in their hands, and then rushing off to the next one without taking the time to listen, engage, and interact. A huge part of the social process is listening rather than talking. A huge part of it is understanding your customer, building rapport, and it's a time-based process, and it needs to be you. A 20-year-old Filipino VA can't do your interpersonal skills. It's like paying someone to go to a party for you. You may as well just not go. There is a role for automation, but first of all, you sort of need to get in there on the ground. So again, this is something that you should be doing, at least writing the emails or writing the content, even if someone else schedules it and handles some of the technical details. This is all about how we connect with our customers, and it should show our personality and our values. It should be branded, and it's all about interaction, because relationships are just interactions over time. The more interactions we have, the stronger the relationship. We rely heavily on systems here, and this is really where we sort of lace together the different parts of our sales funnel. Things like autoresponders or CRMs, like MailChimp or Infusionsoft or Aweber, they actually are kind of the backbone that coordinates the entire customer interaction. So I almost think, even though this is sort of the middle level, I almost think of them as being like the spine that supports this pile of layers. And yeah, so social media is really important here too. It's all about communication and interaction. This is how we touch and connect and listen to and talk to our clients. And yeah, the goal here is building relationship. In this picture, we've got a picture of the world and people standing all around, and a few people shaking hands. So we want to move on from just connecting with people and being found to building a relationship. And as we know, this now occurs across many different media. People are using all sorts of devices. They are using email, sharing images on social media, using their phone, but also new phone devices like Skype, and of course using social media channels like Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and sharing other content like YouTube videos, and logging in, checking in, doing all those sorts of things that the internet's made available in the last 5 or 10 years. And we really are. This is happening so quick. It's hard to know how long some of these things will last. Personally, I think the next big thing will be virtual reality. Facebook's invested heavily in virtual reality. It's spent $2 billion on Oculus Rift. We're going to see massive changes in how we interact with technology over the next few years. I think it's going to become less obvious where it is. It's going to be all around us and embedded into our everyday life. But it's certainly not going away, and it's getting more complex how we're interacting with it, but also more measurable. And it's one of the interesting things about this social relationship versus kind of real world stuff is that what was previously sort of personal, direct, and tangible, but kind of hard to measure, is now becoming digital but measurable in a form at least. So that metric aspect is really changing things. And I'm going to run a webinar soon with Tracy and Wendy from Brisbane Group 2, so Tracy Sheen and Wendy Pavey, on using Facebook advertising and how to use your client contacts to connect with on and promote on via Facebook ads, which leverages the incredible power of social targeting, which is just sort of new in the last year or so, and shows how quickly things are changing. Incredibly powerful. The third level is publishing. So we've built our platform. We're starting to build some connections. Now we need to actually tell them some stuff. And this is where we want to share our expertise. Partly that's to document our method and to sort of to show what we do. Even if you're in a bricks and mortar business, it's really powerful being able to say, this is what's going to happen to you next, and here's the handout that explains what the next 3 weeks will look like. Just by writing it down, showing that you have a plan, it adds tremendous credibility. It gives people peace of mind. They can check against the process that you've supplied. And so simply doing this builds authority, but particularly if you're visibly publishing somewhere and lots of other people are looking. If you've written a book or you've got a YouTube video and hundreds, thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands of people have read it, that instantly makes you more of an expert, more believable, more famous, and your time is more valuable. People will listen to you and take your expertise more carefully, even if they don't like you. So this is a really powerful step. Of course, it's hard to get the opportunity to earn trust if they don't like you. One of the ways, as I said, is if someone else has gone through the know, like, and trust process, and particularly they've also gone on to try and buy your services, and then refers a friend and says, you should use Jackie. Jackie's a great lawyer. We used her and she saved us $10,000. In fact, there's a real estate agent that in our region, and she's got a great reputation as being a great real estate agent. People don't really like her much, but they say it doesn't matter. You should sell with her. So that's a way that if you can get the know, like, trust right with a few people and prove you can do the job, the first steps kind of become less important, but they can't be skipped when you're starting. And level 4 is about then productizing our services. So rather than everything being a kind of custom job or a by the hour thing, we really want to make our more common everyday products and services bite-sized shoppable items. So the goal here is to make your products and services shoppable. So someone can go along and say, oh, look, I'm sort of thinking about doing ABC. And you can say, oh, you'll like our XYZ package, or well, you should try out our DEF option as a starting point. Another benefit of this is to monetize your sales and marketing. And we're seeing that a lot in Facebook ads now. If you've sort of clicked on some of those marketing, marketing, how to market your business type ads on Facebook, what they almost always do now is say, here's your free download, and you can buy this extra bit for only $10. And so this is achieving two goals which are really relevant to what we're talking about here. One is it's achieving this this try phase. It lets you tell them more about your product or service. It teaches them to buy from you. You also get their credit card details, or start that kind of customer relationship, transactional relationship, which often means that they can then buy from you without putting in their details again because you've saved them. And then from there, they can, if they do buy that product, then what you're doing is actually paying for your sales and marketing. So if for example, your Facebook ads or your AdWords or your magazine advertisement can bring in enough small scale business, such as a $10 download or a $200 initial consultation, to at least pay for the ads, then it means you can scale your advertising indefinitely. Once you reach that tipping point where you're bringing in more money from your marketing than you are spending, even before you sell anything, then you can scale your marketing indefinitely. Whereas without that, then when you need more customers because you haven't got any money and you try and advertise, unless you sell things at the other end, you quickly run out of money and then you're stuck. So it's really great to get to the point where at least your sales and marketing is paying for itself. So this is our opportunity to tell them so they can try. This is our narrative phase. And it's all about telling stories these days. Sometimes if it's just a commodity purchase, they don't want to hear your story. But if you're selling commodities, you're in a high competition market. The goal of this course is to help you get out of selling commodities and move on to selling something more remarkable. So at the final step, which I've called program, but it can be a package, it can be a program or a platform. I like to call it a promise, because this is where you're actually delivering on your promise that you talk about at the very start. So at the top of our funnel, which was like in the upside down version, it was here, we say, we will give you this one thing. And up here, we want to deliver that one thing. this is where we actually solve their problem and where we deliver the value. And it should be, nicely packaged. It's all about packaging, and that's something that's becoming more and more clear to me. As many of you know, I used to be a veterinarian, and I've just recently done a bit of locuming for a friend, and it's been, really illuminating into what how that industry works. And I've got a lot of insights going back, looking at that industry with fresh eyes. And one of the really big takeaways is just how much the packaging matters. People can't tell how good a surgeon you are, but they can see if you do good stitches. They can't tell if you really know what's wrong with their dog, but they can tell if your shoes are shiny. So because people lack the ability, they're not qualified to understand what you offer, your products and services, and your capabilities, they use proxies, things that they can understand that are substitutes for that, and that make them feel like they're in control and able to make an informed decision, even though they're not. So it's really important to package things so that we're ticking all their boxes of the things that they know how to assess. If you get them right and you also deliver value, they'll be delighted. If you deliver value and give them what they really need, but you don't tick the boxes that they're looking for from their unqualified perspective, then they will be dissatisfied and you'll be confused, and that's very frustrating for you. And this is really probably my biggest lesson, and in reflecting on my time doing some locuming recently, that's been probably the reason why I left vet science and have gone on this journey of trying to understand marketing. Was sometimes you would work miracles for someone and they'd be unhappy, and now I've realized it's as likely to be that you weren't wearing the right clothes on the day. And I've heard a great story. I won't share this time, but I'll share it with you later, to that effect, just on the stats of what people like. But basically, people form incredible snap judgments based on what professionals wear, so that if doctors or vets or anyone wear a tie, for example, or a white lab coat, their perceived expertise goes up about 20 or 30%, in spite of that clearly having no bearing on actual expertise. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the process. So our goal here is building brand value. We've got some time for questions now, and what I will do is, if anyone has their Facebook open, if you want to go into the Facebook chat, but Bronwyn has a couple of questions for me as well, and also just message me on Facebook or message Bronwyn on Facebook if you've got any questions, and we'll address those now. What about you, Bronwyn? Was there anything you needed to ask now?
Dallas, I was just, the part that really stood out to me about tonight's presentation was the lesson about having a working knowledge about the platforms that we're going to build. Now, I know that that's a really big hurdle for a lot of people, and I know that it's important for us. Do you run your business saying, oh, I don't know about profit and losses or balance sheets? But that's a big hurdle for a lot of people. How is there a process or a step-by-step that people can go through to get to the point where they actually have a working knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the online course, which we're about to launch, there's a free component which really covers that digital literacy, as in, what's a domain? How does that relate to an email? Is that the same as my business name? There's lots of really common questions about just claiming your online identity, and then understanding how to use the web and do it. And that's a huge obstacle that stops people getting to where they want to go. So, people often hear, oh, I have my website built in WordPress, it's really easy to use, or I use this technology, it's fine. But very often there's a series of even more basic things beyond how to use your website, like just how to use a browser and what domains mean, and how to open things in new tabs. Like it's not rocket science, but it's stuff that you don't know if you don't know. And I always think of when I use Microsoft Word or PowerPoint or something, and I've never really worked in an office where we've been using things like that all day. We've had occasional use, but almost every time I'm stuck trying to find a button. And if you're in an office with 5 people, or you've got a spouse or sibling or someone, a child who can help you out, they've only got to come over and say, oh, it's just there. And most technologies like that, if you know what to look for, it's easy. If you try to figure it out on your own, it's incredibly hard. So in the free component of this course, I'll be covering a lot of just the really basic stuff about how to use browsers, what domains are, how to generate content, how to capture information, another huge one. I know, Bronwyn, you're a huge fan of Evernote. That's a great way to capture information, because when we're doing research and developing our ideas, there's a really important phase where we're just accruing information and we need to put it somewhere and organize it so we can find it again. Things like that are really powerful tools. If you don't have them, it seems like some of these tasks are almost impossible, and you just kind of need someone to show you where to look. So I'll cover that in the course. And then the paid part of the course will actually go through how to build a website from scratch. And we'll actually build it for you, but we'll also show you how to do it, and then how to sort of edit it and modify it as you need to, or how to build it again from scratch if you want to. And I'll also do a kind of light version of that. And I'm not sure if there'll be a price point on that or if it'll be part of the free course, but so that really anyone can just build a very basic website to implement everything here, not to the standard that I like to do, but more than enough to test out the ideas and, spend 20 or 50 hours getting it looking really good on their own. So we will attempt to cover that in detail. Good one, Bronwyn.
That's great, Dallas, because I know that is a big hurdle for a lot of people, but it's a bit like everything else in business. We go into business and we create our own business because we're technicians and we're good at something. We're good at what we love doing, but there's a whole heap of other stuff around there that we need to at least make ourselves familiar with as well.
Definitely. And I was reflecting earlier on why I got out of vet science. And I remember when I was sort of making that decision, should I make this leap and sell my practice and retire from being a vet, one of the things I was really looking toward was future-proofing my skill set. And going back to the story about the pharaohs who couldn't write, to me, if you decide, oh look, I can email, but I'm not going to do any more with computers. Or I had a client recently, and they said, oh, I don't have a Google account and I don't want one. And it's sort of like, yeah, sure, that's optional. But if you want to be, doing any of this online leadership and building your brand and somehow skip interacting with Google, it's not going to happen, or you're doing it the hard way anyway. So you've just got to be realistic about what skills that you need to get under your belt, and then adopt a sort of business-like attitude. I mean, I didn't want to go to school and learn to read and write, but I'm glad I did. It's very much like that. One of the best things I ever did was typing. I did a typing course, which, had I been a bit older and trying to be more manly, I might have thought, oh, no way am I doing typing. But it's just been the greatest skill to have, because you can, pump out an essay on the night before very, very quickly. That's sure it's a huge part of the reason I could get into vet science, was just the ability to produce work quickly and, produce a professional looking result. So, just like we didn't want to learn to read and write, we didn't want to learn how to use our knife and fork properly in restaurants. We didn't want to have to learn how to use computers. Realistically, they're tools that we need to have in our repertoire if we're going to succeed in today's world.
And that's an excellent lesson. Thanks, Dallas. I know I'm a bit of an email list junkie. I sign up to lots of email lists to find out what's happening out there in the world. And I get lots of emails every week or day telling me how I can sign up to a course and make $100,000 a month or a year or whatever by following this simple formula. But in reality, the process that you've led us through over these webinars is what we really, really have to do. In the end, there's no substitute for doing it yourself and doing the work yourself. Would you agree with that assessment?
For sure, that's a great point, and I would like to comment further on that. So a vast majority of the online marketing information you see is very much it's kind of like a get rich quick thing almost. It's not untrue, and it can be done, but you've got to actually win that game. And I often liken it to seeing someone on Australian Idol or seeing Michael Jackson and thinking, I know, I'm going to learn to sing and become a millionaire. It's not that it can't be done, but that's not a reliable, repeatable path that will work for everyone. So the concept of this method is that you have an existing skill or business that you're already doing fine in, but times are changing, and unless you're online, you will find yourself increasingly irrelevant. So it's time for you now to be one of those people who does adapt to the new technology, who is, riding the wave rather than about to be dumped by the wave. And so likewise, I'm a huge consumer of this online marketing stuff. And yeah, a lot of it's clearly true, but it's also often very opportunistic, very targeted, and you only hear about the success stories. And you'll notice that most of them seem to make most of their money telling other people how to get rich online rather than, sitting on the beach drinking mojitos, which is what I'd be doing if I could scalably, repeatedly make millions of dollars. And then, rather than teaching 100 people to do it, I would employ 100 people to make $1 million a year, not try to be selling it. So in practice, most of the people out there you see selling social media and doing online marketing, their primary income is selling social media rather than getting it straight from their business. So the way to make this work, and that's why in this method, the first step is a valid business model. If you've got an existing proven business and you can figure out a way to bring in 20% more leads and increase your profit margin by 10 or 20%, then that's a very workable model. Thinking that you're going to start a blog or a podcast or attract 100,000 social media followers and somehow turn that into a lifestyle business, it can work, but there's only a handful of people in the industry who actually do very well, and an awful lot of the people who appear to be really at the top of their game in that field, like some of the really best teachers of quality of information, still live very modest lives and would be like a well-off business person, but not by any means super successful, and they're the outliers who are at the top of their game. So yeah, I really think the opportunity is take an existing business or career and augment that, add 20%, add 50% to your turnover over several years by implementing things on a consistent basis, just as part of your business processes, rather than I'm going to build a celebrity blog or podcast or whatever it is, and that's going to make me money on its own. That can work, but it is hard. And stick to proven business models, but be ready to adapt those with changing technology, and you've got the best of both worlds.
Thanks, Dallas. That's sage advice from somebody who knows what they're talking about. I haven't seen any other questions come through on my feed, Dallas. So
no, terrific. We'll set up questions a bit better next time. But thanks everyone for coming along again, and really looking forward to seeing you again next week. So this is the end of this 5-part series, but what I'll be doing, as I said, is going on and doing some more sort of in detail and more practical steps. So a lot of the things I've talked about, they're very high level, very conceptual, but I know that a lot of people's questions are about how do I actually do this? Now, they're great webinars, and really, it's really good information, but I'm I felt very strongly I wanted to kind of get this out first, because if you don't go in with the right attitude and the right strategy and sort of business model behind you, like I've just been talking about, you end up just getting opportunistic and scattered and chasing the new thing. You know, this week you need Facebook ads, next week you need webinars, next week you need to be, you know, doing well on Instagram. And I know from personal experience and watching, you know, dozens of friends doing, you know, really well online on the kind of follower level or in terms of getting traffic and things, but not turning into business, that won't work to actually create revenue. And, you know, it's just too easy to lose your shirt with that approach. So the first thing is to actually build a really solid foundation like we've talked about today. And then you start throwing in things like, let's drive some traffic to it using Facebook ads. Let's use webinars for sales. And I'm going to run webinars with experts on these types of topics. You know, some people who will be familiar to most of the audience, and as well as, you know, international experts. And we'll get heaps of great in-depth lessons. And, you know, if you've got any particular areas you want to cover, love to hear those from you as well. We'll go right into detail, and then we'll sort of weave them back into this course structure. So stay tuned for that. Every Thursday we'll be repeating the webinars, and keep that regular. I'm also doing a series of interviews with people following this method, where we're basically looking at people's businesses and looking at how they've applied each of these steps, so that we can understand how they work in practice with people who've succeeded online. So they've built their brand, and then they're using that to use their digital influence to create the change they want to see in the world. That's the goal of this program. So I look forward to sharing that with you. Love to hear your feedback and comments, and I'll see you all next Thursday at 7 p.m. Thanks again, Bronwyn, and you've been a great support and help through this process, and look forward to seeing you too.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.